Hi, it's Colin Cowherd. I started The Volume to bring you some of the most authentic voices in sports. While you're here, make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks. I'll throw this at you. Brady retires in 2 weeks. Aaron Rodgers says, I want out. So Davante Adams is out. Aaron agrees to Tampa. Green Bay says, we want Mike Evans. We're not losing Davante and getting nobody. Tampa needs to cut money because Brady's contract has a punitive salary cap hit if he doesn't play, plus Aaron's salary cap. The Packers get Mike Evans and JPP, but they've been looking for an edge rusher for years. Between the two, it's $33 million, $30-some million of salary. Green Bay gets JPP, Mike Evans, 2 firsts, up to 3 if Aaron plays a third year, which has always been something you've talked about. Mm-hmm. 2 guaranteed, up to 3 if he plays a third year. If he retires after 2, you get 2 minimum, even if he retired after a year. 3 if he stays for 3. Jordan Love plays. With Aaron's contract out, you have a little more wiggle room, plus drafting to make a better roster, still the best in division, and competes with Chicago to win it. Aaron goes on and dominates the NFC South.
What's going to be the worst division with Sean Payton out gone? That's going to be the worst division in football by a mile. It's going to be a terrible division.
So if you can make it work financially, Green Bay would obviously not like to send him to an NFC team. But Tampa, think about this. The Steelers and the Broncos are maybe better fits, right, for the Packers in the AFC. But both organizations have sharp GMs and sharp front offices. They're not willing to roll the dice on Aaron with his seemingly endless retirement talk. Tampa does not have that infrastructure. They just like winning. They just flew a private jet.
Tampa 100% would do it. That's my question to you is this, though, because you do seem to have a good line on how Aaron Rodgers ticks. I would think the last thing he would want to do is go to the place Brady just won at, because it's very hard to be like, can't win here. It's very hard to be like, it's not my fault when Tom just did it.
Okay,
right?
Here. But if he goes to the NFC North and is overshadowed by Burrow, or to the AFC West and is overshadowed by Mahomes and Herbert, but we know he'll be at least as good or better than Tom, who was 44. So it looks better imaging. Hey, he's as good or better than Tom.
I think the idea of going to the AFC West is insane. It would be if Derek Carr is the far and away worst quarterback in a division, it's the greatest division of quarterbacks ever, right? Right. Mahomes, Herbert would be the third best quarterback in the division. Then it's like it's impossible. So it just seems like that would be a very audacious move to go to the AFC West with Herbert and Mahomes already there.
And the reason I think it's possible, because Denver's got world championships, several, and so do the Steelers. The retirement talk, I've been told this by somebody in the league, the retirement talk, Aaron talked about it in August, December, and yesterday on Pat McAfee's YouTube show. It's turning people off. People are like, I'm not giving you up 3 first-round picks and 3 players. You could leave for jeopardy in a year. It's turning people off in the league.
Well, the Steelers, to me, though, Tomlin can deal with a lot, man. Tomlin kept AB fine. We didn't know what a disaster he was. Big Ben's not exactly easy. Big Ben also is a guy that loves the spotlight. Was doing the weekly radio show. Did the retirement, not retire. And I think remember the Steelers. They traded a first-round pick for a safety the year Big Ben got hurt. That's how much they want to win. If Big Ben out for the year, where Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph, we'll trade you our first-round pick, going to be the best first-round pick we've had in 10 years, for Minka Fitzpatrick, because we want to win now. I think there is, personally, the Steelers is the one that makes the most sense to me. Tampa I had not considered. Also because, do you think Tom's retiring?
I think it's the closest he's been. And another reason, Aaron is smart enough to know that the lack of competition in the NFC North, like Brady in the AFC East, is why he keeps playing home playoff games. That division is going to be so bad if Brady retires. It's a layup.
It's so bad. Can I talk about the Brady retirement thing with you for a moment? Because I tried to do this on television, but there are certain topics that if you don't get exactly right, you're just going to get excoriated for. And it was I didn't want to get it wrong in the small bits of television, but I think you and I can talk about it. So to me, it's pretty clear Tom wants to keep playing football, and that if he doesn't, it's because his wife and his kids don't want him to, right? Like that he wants to play. All right, so here's the thing that I'm pondering here. I understand everyone has a responsibility to their family. I get that. If you are the family of someone who is literally in the discussion for the greatest in the history of the world at something, do you have a responsibility to them that is different than if dad's seventh in command at the local electronics store and he works 80 hours a week? Is there not an element of, listen, being the family or the kids or whatever of Tom Brady has a lot of awesome stuff that comes with it? The one negative thing is he might be so locked in and dedicated to the field that there's time you don't get with him. By the way, he'll still retire 50 years younger than 50 years, 20 years younger than most people retire if he retires at 45. I feel funny about this idea that a guy who might be the greatest football player ever is going to walk away before he wants to, not because he can't play anymore, not because he's not great, but because the people he loves want him to. Like, I don't know. I'm not exactly saying it right, but it feels weird to me. Like Tom Brady owes it to himself to do exactly what he wants to write the final chapter of his football life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Tom said the other day to Jim Gray, he said, "It pains Giselle when I get hit." He did not say, "It pains Giselle when I go to practice or watch film." She doesn't want to see her husband get hurt. That's the issue. The time away, I don't think, I say this all the time. My wife and I will talk about this. I'm like, if you consider, how well I've done financially, generally you have to fly globally or fly 200 days a year to do as well as I do. I'm like, I'm home at noon every single day.
Correct.
So
if you football players have 5 months a year off. That's the thing is, I'm sure during the season he's a pain in the ass. Like, and I'm sure, and I say that lovingly, and I'm sure that there are things he misses. But it also is a job that February to July, you have essentially as much free time as you want. And it's not the traveling thing's exactly right. This is not I'm missing everything because I commute to Zurich. That's not what's happening here. And so
Right.
I don't know. I didn't like when I listened to Brady, I felt badly for him in this regard, which is we all understand the push and pull between work and life and family. And he mentioned, the stuff with Kobe that, of course, made us all kind of take a moment and say, are we putting the most important things first? All of that. I get that. But there's also, to me, something when you are not just a pro athlete, but someone that might be the greatest ever at something. I really just feel like you should be able to do it on your own terms and that the people closest to you will understand.
Well, that's why, they say behind every great success, every man, there's a great woman. So I think Giselle is really capable, really smart, really international, really a great mom. She can handle it. I remember years ago, I had this discussion with somebody I worked with at the other network, ESPN. And we were talking about George Bodenheimer. and there was a big emergency at ESPN or something, somebody, I don't know, it was a controversy or something. And I said, your wife has to understand, it's an understanding in the family, like, unless your life is in jeopardy, there are going to be moments every year, a dozen, where the job comes first. It will take precedence over the family.
And again, I tried to talk about this on TV, and I felt like, man, I'm gonna come across like a shitty dad, or I absolutely. And here's the other thing I said is this: his kids are 9, 12, 14, I think. When they are older, they will get it. Let me tell you something. Listen, I've talked with you a little bit about my father. My dad was a workaholic, and he was not Tom Brady, but he thought he has a calling. He would tell you, like, this is what I was put on this earth to do, is to fight for the firefighters of Kansas City, Missouri. That's my job, to make sure they are taken care of, to make sure they have health benefits, to make sure they have the best working conditions. Like, that is what he dedicated his life to. And he missed a lot of stuff. And as a kid, did it piss me off? It kind of did. And then I got to be an adult, and I felt like I had a calling. Not one nearly as important, by the way, to the world as his. Just something I must do. And you know what I did? I moved to Los Angeles with my family in Houston for a year and a half. Commuted back and forth. Will I ever get that time back with my daughters, with my son? I won't. Do I regret it? No. Because it not only was what I needed to do in order to be having this conversation with you, in order to have my career, but it also, I am the adult that, like, in the family, I have to recognize I might have to sacrifice some things that I will miss because of what it will allow me to do for you in the future as my kids. Now, I get it. If you're Brady, you've already made so much money. You're like that check has already been, that box has already been checked. I think this idea that it is outrageous that people would say, no, listen, there's a lot of times in life that the job does come first. Like, it's very few people that get anywhere close to the top of any field that can't do it. Now, if Brady wants to say, I don't want to do that anymore, God bless him. But what is shocking to me about the retirement talk is this. Tom Brady has achieved literally every goal he ever set out, even the ones that seemed impossible. He set out one that seemed impossible. I want to play until I'm 45. He is 1 year away. He's 2 years removed from a Super Bowl. This year, he almost won MVP. He's going to stop a year short. I think that causes, if I'm being honest, resentments, bitterness. I think there's a lot of stuff, like, I don't know. I hope he finishes. I hope he plays.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a right answer. I think a lot of this stuff is communication with your wife, with your kids. So, Ann and I talk about this stuff all the time, and where we want to be 5 years down the road, what we want to be doing. And I'll give you an example. I'm certainly not an expert on this, but my kids have moved around a lot because of my career. Now, we've had certain things available to us that have been really advantageous. Private schools, incredible vacations, access to things we would never have without me, Dad's job, right?
Income. Yep.
So we go back and forth, and what I just try to do is communicate and talk to my kids and what bothers you and how do you feel. I can remember when I got a divorce, I monitored my daughter's grades. I talked to her counselors. How's it affecting her? I had these open conversations. I went to a lot of therapy. And so I wanted to see how it affected her. And I was very fortunate. My ex and I, she was, it was a very amicable split. And so there was no hostility. But it was, it's a fluid situation. And I think my kids have come out of it really well. I don't think there's a right answer. Somebody will listen to this and who's not as ascending or doesn't have a great career aspirations and will think we're the cold-hearted, horrible parents. And then some trial attorney who's a great dad will listen to it and go, I've been in that space. So I feel like I have missed out on some things because of my job, but I've also been able to experience things with my children I could have not experienced if I had not kept
Right.
you know
Listen, there's the access and things like that are obviously important. But the argument against it with Brady is he's already, if he would have stopped 3 years ago, they still, the money is endless, the fame and access, all that's endless. But there is, and again, we're going down a deep rabbit hole or whatever. I remember my mom was the most selfless person she's
yeah
still with us, I've ever met. Uh, and there was like, she never, ever, ever put herself first. And she had a high level job. But I remember vividly as a kid once, I think I was being a total brat right around Christmas time. I remember vividly. She looked at me and she said, "Nick, it's everyone's Christmas, not just yours." And that always resonated with me because I was like, as a kid, you don't always think about that. Like, Christmas is supposed to be fun for the parents too. The reason I bring that up is this. Even when you're a parent, you're still like, there's still an element of, when you live your life, there should be some math of what makes me happy. What do I want to do? Like, there has
right
to be an element. It can't just always be, once again, it's your responsibility to take care of the kids, make sure they have the things they need. But then there's in the margins, and I do think that it is different if you are someone that is one of the greatest ever at something. It is more reasonable to put that your field, high on the priority list than if you're, the executive vice president of a widget company. And it's, I don't know. Maybe I'm an asshole for it. And I know we got other stuff to talk about, but I firmly
not
believe that.
yeah I mean, I think Giselle, the resentment would be Giselle thinking, "Hey pal, I was a supermodel and gave up more money than you."
That's a good point. That's a good point, because she did it. That would be the argument, is I was the Tom Brady of supermodeling and I stopped. You won't ever stop. That is a good point. That is a really good point, because she is like, there is a whole element of, it's not the typical superstar athlete family where the husband is the breadwinner by a million
Right.
miles.
She made more than him.
She made more. It's
She
so
did.
wild. It's so wild.
Yeah, so I don't think
that's
I
a
don't
good
think
point.
the
That's a good point.
yeah, I don't think the kids would have the resentment. I think they'd love Dad. I think recently I moved into a house, and this is on me. It did not have an art studio for my wife. It had this broadcasting area, and at the time the house served so many needs for us that we really liked. And I found it, and then I showed my wife, and she loved it. But neither of us in the purchase thought about how important a studio of art is for my wife. And I feel bad. This is something that I'm trying to solve right now. Yeah. So I find in my life, my kids understand Dad's busy and understand Dad can't be there for everything, but I better make my wife happy. And if I F that up, I'm in big trouble.
Of course, which is, my takeaway from that story is Colin's about to have to buy one of his neighbor's houses. Going to be two house guys, same block. Why do you have two houses? I fucked this up. I didn't have a studio for my wife, so now I have two houses.